Hey folks, how's it going? Tactard Ted. It's a Friday. Yes sir, Friday. That means we're on the cusp of the weekend. It means I'll get to spend a couple of days with my family. And I am very much assured that it will either be way too damn hot or it will rain like a sieve. So anyhow, I'm here to talk to you about, guess what? Yes, absolutely, Ukraine. Why am I here to talk to you about Ukraine? Well, if you remember yesterday, I spoke to you about some surprising advances in Ukraine, in the Donbass, by the Russian army. In fact, it's really amazing. It seems that the Russians slowed down their push on Seversk, and they ended up pushing down south. In fact, they took the town of Pesky, and they're moving on Advika, and they'll be moving on, it looks like, Bakhmut from the south. Nothing new here, folks. As we go on, they continually talk more and more about the disparity. There we go. I get that word out. Disparity of firepower between the Ukrainians and the Russians. Now, the interesting thing is, the Ukrainians are now blaming their failure to contain the Russian advances on the fact that they don't have ammunition, and that somebody had to have their artillery pieces repositioned in front of Kherson. Now, for those of you who don't know, Kherson is the area where the Ukrainians have been talking that they are going to have a counterattack. They have been talking about this for a month and a half. It's much expected in the West. In fact, a lot of Western leaders are banking on this counterattack to show their constituents at home that the money they've been wasting in Ukraine has been worth it. Kherson was one of the first cities to fall to the Russian army, and the Russians have actually issued passports to the people who want them, and have switched over the currency to rubles. The Russians are pretty well ingrained in that area. It would take an awful lot for the Ukrainians to push them out, but that's what the Ukrainians claim that they were attempting to do, and so they removed a lot of their heavy artillery, which is very important in this war. It's an artillery war. They moved that artillery away from the Donbass, away from Donetsk, and moved it to Kherson. And apparently this wasn't a very good idea, because the Russians in Donbass saw these guns leaving. They got information that there wasn't as much firepower, and they moved around, changed objectives, and exploited the weakness in the Ukrainian lines. The Russians are being pretty methodical, folks. I mentioned this before. They are analyzing everything. They're doing this on the cheap. They are honestly doing this on the cheap. And they are finding any advantage and exploiting it. The fact that they've built up a number of operational brigades in and around Kherson have led a lot of people, including now some Ukrainians, saying that they believe that there will be an offensive launched by the Russians in the Kherson region, probably towards Mykolaiv and Odessa. I discussed that a little bit yesterday. Don't want to go through it all again. Don't want to keep pounding the same stuff. But now we're seeing that there apparently is a lot of internal friction going on inside the Ukrainian side. This is really, honestly, and I've said this many times before, and I'll say it again, this honestly is very reminiscent of the fall of the Third Reich. You've got leaders and leadership who are out of touch. You've got the mad rabid dogs, the Azov guys, who have been the political soldiers throughout the whole thing, and they are actually turning on Zelensky. Not that there was any great love there with Zelensky, but they feel there's a split, much like the SS in the later days of the war found a way to split with Hitler. in the end of the World War II, the Germans were counting on very many wonder weapons. These wonder weapons were going to take care of everything and make it happen. That was going to be the game changers, like the M777s, which the Russians have now destroyed 33 of the 100 and some that we've sent. The HIMARS, I think now they say they've up to 16, 14. The Russians have destroyed 6 of them. And all the other wonder weapons, the Javelins, the AT-4s, all the stuff that we could yank out of our system and send them. And it still isn't enough. The Reich is falling apart. And now the recriminations are starting, the political dilemmas at home. The Volkssturm, those were the old men and little boys that were conscripted into the German army, that they were going to be the game changer that was going to stop the onslaught of the Allies. And it didn't. And the fact that Kiev is now up the draft age for men to 75 years old should show you how well the war is going for them. Basically, any male Ukrainian up to the age of 75 and as young as 15 is expected in uniform. This is not the actions of a winner. These are not the people who are going to be victorious. That's not exactly how that works. And I think it's manifesting itself. You're seeing it. You're seeing it happen daily. The fact that our news is ignoring it should be troubling. It should be concerning that our news is refusing to cover it because it's going to be a huge embarrassment. The fact that the media has lied to you, that the media has regurgitated everything the Ukrainians have told them and everything that has been put out there by the jokes in Washington, like Kirby and John Pierre, whatever the name is, the White House spokes shill. Those folks are just making laughing stocks of themselves. At this point, you know that you can't really trust anything you're being told. There's no reason to trust anything you're being told, because you can find in a quick amount of time that there are discrepancies. And just like the Facebook fact checkers, you know, we're now subverting to letting people decide for us what is true and what is not. You and I are not smart enough to be able to decipher and look at the truth. No, we have to have somebody else tell us what the truth is. We're like small children, and that's how they look at us. You know, we're like parents having to say, hey, wait a minute, this is a fairy tale, it's not true, this is the reality. And this is the way they're treating us. They're treating us like children. And, you know, it's bad enough that they are stomping on freedom of speech. What most people don't understand is the other half of freedom of speech is you have the right to seek information. You have the right to hear other people's speech. And they're denying that. It's not a written right, it is an implied right. If I have the right to speak my mind, then other people have the right to, who want to listen to me or hear me. And what we're doing is we are messing with that. I hate to tell you, I don't think that a lot of these platforms need to exist. Facebook is more about molding your behavior. This is why they do the bans and everything. They don't want you to say certain things, and they're going to keep hitting you with bans. They keep deleting accounts. And I know a lot of folks that play the Facebook game, 4 or 5 accounts. They keep an eye on how many infractions they have. And occasionally they'll lose an account and create a new account. It's nothing new. It's a shell game. It's a shell game with their accounts. But when it comes to Ukraine, it's very interesting. You can post fuck Russia all day long. Not a problem. You put fuck Ukraine, you're probably going to have a problem. Somebody will report you. Somebody will, whatever. We've got this hive mind thing going on. Everybody has a right to be offended. And that's a lot of what's driving Ukraine. Apparently, you can be Ukrainian born. You can be a U.S. member of Congress, and suddenly, if you say things that are not too flattering to the Kiev regime, some of your cohorts in Congress or even the media will start calling you out as being pro-Putin, pro-Russian talking points, this sort of thing. It's ridiculous. You know, if anything, and this woman is saying things that are critical of Kiev, maybe we all ought to be paying attention. She's actually from the country or not. I would really hope that a lot of these folks who are pro-Ukrainian have actually been to Ukraine, although a number of them have not. In fact, I would say the vast majority. I would also say the vast majority could not find Ukraine on a map. They couldn't. They couldn't. It's easy to find. Know exactly where it's at. Know exactly where it's at. Do you? Do you stand with Ukraine? Do you stand with that country you have know nothing about? Do you stand with Ukraine, the one of the most corrupt countries on the planet, one of the most corrupt in Europe, probably right alongside Greece for corruption and very low living standards. I mean, Greece is a beautiful country, but let's face it, not very nice living standards. In fact, the Russians are talking about how much money it's going to take to bring Donbass up to the Russian standard of living. And that's not even a joke. So anyhow, folks, I probably, unless something massive happens this weekend, probably won't be back to yak at you until maybe Monday. And then again, who knows, life might get in the way again. But we're seeing the beginning of the end in Donbass. And right now it's a crapshoot. The whole thing could collapse in a matter of days, or it may hang on for another month or two. But it's not going to stay intact, not at this rate. So anyhow, I will talk to you folks later. You have a good one. Bye.